Alright, I have a 2002 Tahoe which had fuel pressure problems, and here's my story on it. It is a 5.3 2002 Tahoe, VIN code Z, which means it's a flex fuel, which you'll see that the regulator, the vacuum line comes out straight out the back, and the regular one comes off the side. Really, the only difference you need to know. Everywhere I read that said that the pressure should be above like 45 to 55 when it's running. I couldn't find any vehicle that was that good. Most are around 42. I would say anything below 42, your pump's getting pretty questionable. But I think 42 is probably the number you're shooting for. If you pull off this vacuum line when it's running, it should go to 50. So that's one way to make sure that you're getting enough pressure up to the regulator, that the regulator is doing its job. So what happened is I put old fuel in this thing, and it started acting up and was stalling out and dying, misfiring, and it was really just the old snowmobile fuel I put in here. But at the same time, I just wanted to see how the fuel pump was doing, and what I noticed is that when I would just turn on the key, it would go up to 50 pounds on here, 50 psi, and it would drain off real quick. Maybe an hour later it'd be down to like 10 pounds or so, and so that's kind of a red flag, something's not right. And so what I did is I went and bought a new fuel regulator because, well, it's easy to do. It's right there. It's you just pull that clip off and it pulls right out. A couple O-rings in there, and so I did that, and sure enough, my luck, that's a brand new bad regulator in there from Delphi. So the way I tested that to see that it was a regulator was to put the fuel gauge on there, start the vehicle, or not start it, but put the fuel gauge on there, and then I took off the return line, which is the bottom line, the smaller line, and I just capped it off, put a clamp on there. You have to clamp it really good because if it leaks, it'll still give you a false reading, so make sure that's really clamped well. I just used 3/8 hose, and then I turned the key on, and then the gauge went straight to, with my new pump, it pegged the meter at 100. But on my old pump, which is this one, the stock one with 250,000 miles on it, it only went up to, well, I think 60. Yeah, 60. So this pump is going out. It was under 40 psi, so a little weak. But you want it to hold pressure, and if it holds pressure with this being capped off the return line, that means everything from this back is good, except for if it's leaking down like it was prior, like I mentioned, I'd turn the key on, it'd go up to 50 psi, it would sit there and then just drain off slowly. And if you put this on and cap it off the return line, and it holds pressure and it doesn't drain off slowly, that means your regulator is bad. So or it can be three things. It can be your regulator is bad, it can be leaking into, well, you could have a leak somewhere which you'd notice if it's leaking fuel. It could be leaking into an injector, which in that case your vehicle would be smoking bad, it would be running bad, and it'd be starting bad. But or it can be the check valve on your fuel pump. So what you'd have to do, if it's still leaking down after you plug this off and it's still dropping pressure, the next thing you'd have to do is hook up your pressure gauge straight to your fuel intake line, which is the top one. You'd have to connect into the line coming up to your fuel rail and check your pump and make sure your pump is holding pressure. That way you know it's not the check ball in your pump. And then if it's not that, it's more than likely leaking into an injector. Your injectors are stuck open. So but that's not the case on mine. The second I plugged this off and wasn't allowing it to return fuel back to the tank, it held pressure and was great. So that tells me my regulator is leaking. Well, it's bad. It's not even the right part, I don't think. So I'm going to be switching the Delphi one out that I got off of Amazon that was recommended for my vehicle. I thought Delphi would be good, but it's the wrong part. The O-ring's super loose on it. So I'm going to be ordering the GM part, which was part number 217-1582, I think. And that's a GM direct part and has a lot better reviews. So I will be swapping that out. And when I did that, my gauge went up to 100 psi. When I capped this off, I could see fuel leaking out of the bottom of that regulator. So do not get the Delphi one, get the GM one, is what I would recommend. So that's how you kind of diagnose this. With the key on, should be 50 pounds or better. With it running, should be 42 or better. Capped off, it shouldn't be leaking anywhere. It should be holding pressure everywhere. That tells you that the pump's good and everything. And then, so what I did is I put new fuel lines in this vehicle about a year ago, and I just cut a hole in the panel and the floorboards here because I thought it'd be a lot easier, because I spent like 2 hours trying to get the first hose off and I couldn't do it. Thing was seized on there so good, so I just cut a hole in there, which you can see, it's pretty much right on the corner of this and like 10 inches each way, I think, something like that. And then to put it back together, I just put a piece of steel in here, riveted wherever, that's stainless steel. And then I just riveted it back in there, and then I put just, hot glue, which is a little bit stuck right here, but, that stuff can peel off if you needed to, but I just wanted to keep the fumes out of the vehicle. So it was nice. I did this last year, and now I have a fuel pump problem, and voila, there it is. The tools you need is, I used one of these. Some people just pinch these and then take it off later. These are such a cool little tool. You just, put it in there, shove it in there, wiggle the hose back and forth, and it'll go in further, then it'll pop right off. Super slick. And then this, you have to peel this little tab. There's a little red tab over this one that broke off, but you have to pull that little tab out, and then this just pulls off. This one, obviously, just pop that off. And my ring, the ring that goes around here, was so rusted out that I literally had to just pry it off and rip it out of there. There was no moving it whatsoever. It was completely rusted out and seized. I soaked it for about 3 days before even attempting it. But I did get it off pretty fast, actually, just by using a screwdriver underneath it and prying up on it. Just be real careful not to start a fire, explode, especially if your tank's like half empty or even empty. Then you have a lot of fumes, and that's where explosions can happen. If your tank's completely full, a lot less likelihood of an explosion, more of just a fire. So just be aware of that. You can use, I tried to use brass stuff at first, but it wasn't happening. So to get the new ring on, I saw a bunch of videos, people saying, oh, just use a screwdriver and, put it in there and spin it. Yeah, that does not work whatsoever. So, being at Christmas time and Amazon, it was like a week and a half to get a tool to be able to spin that. So, I just went out to the shop. This is 5 1/4 from here to here. And then I, just made 1/4 inch tabs on this, and plasma cut a hole right through that for my wrench, and then that goes just on each one of these little square holes here, and then just spins it. And then to remove it, you just need to get this one plastic chunk out of the way when you try to remove it if you can. But I would not attempt this without this tool. Don't try just a screwdriver, it's ridiculous. Other than that, and then like I said, I put hot glue over that. I think I mentioned that already. And then just rivets and piece of cake. But I think that's all I have on that. One little pro tip I would mention: if you do have a 2002 Tahoe and don't like mice, screen these holes off. There's one on each side. I'll probably suggest this in every video I ever do, because I did this to like all the vehicles because they were all getting mice in there. I just took hot glue and a screen, and hot glue is my thing if you can't tell already. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions, or if you can have any input on this. That would be great in the comments. Hopefully we can help each other out. Adios.